Next on Currents News, a teenager just like your own son or daughter, the first millennial beatified by the Catholic Church.
We're going to have the intercession of Blessed Carlo to help us in our evangelization outreach.
A Carlo Acutis relic now in the Diocese of Brooklyn, where you can see it. And an update on the papal progress report, Pope Francis back at the Vatican, but not before a pit stop. Plus, bishops are fighting against what they call the most extreme pro-abortion bill they have ever seen, how you can take a stand for life. Then the woman who has already taken that fight into her own hands, trying to bring hope to women right before they enter an abortion clinic. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. Christine Persichetti is off. There is a blessed in Brooklyn, a relic from the first millennial servant of God, Carlo Acutis. It came to the diocese this afternoon. The 15-year-old tech whiz who passed away from leukemia is beloved the world over, and Brooklynites are excited to have a relic of a possible saint in their midst. Jessica Easthope joins us now with more about this relic and its arrival in Windsor Terrace. So Jess, we've been waiting all week to find out, what is it?
Yeah, Emily, everyone's been waiting for the answer to that million-dollar question. The relic that arrived today is 7 little strands of his hair. It's a first-class relic, which means it's a piece of Carlo Acutis' physical body. And the good news is Catholics of the Diocese of Brooklyn will be able to venerate it permanently.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
Amazing, and here to stay.
Particles of his hair.
These strands of hair belonging to Blessed Carlo Acutis were presented to Bishop Nicholas DIMARZIO Wednesday.
Oh, it's very nice.
The relic of the first millennial considered for sainthood will travel to Catholic schools in the diocese, then will be displayed at Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Bayside.
It's an indescribable feeling.
It's thanks to Pastor Monsignor Thomas Mahalski the relic is here. He asked Bishop DIMARZIO to request it with one thing in mind: evangelization.
He used the internet for evangelization, and now we have to use what he began and use his example to help change.
Acutis, a tech-savvy, normal kid with a life cut tragically short. He died a week after being diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 15. The miracle that led to his beatification involves a young Brazilian boy who was healed of a rare disorder after touching another of Acutis' relics, a piece of clothing. Acutis is admired for using the internet for good, bringing people closer to Christ through the Eucharist.
Young people can seek holiness in their life because this kid was a regular kid. I mean, with the war, what everybody else did, he was on the internet. All of the things that young people do, he did.
A Brooklyn miracle.
By traveling to all of the schools throughout the diocese, young people will get to tap into their own holiness and realize that sainthood looks a lot like they do.
We need saints that speak to the young people, and he speaks to young people. It'd be great. It'd be great for us to get it. And the miracle is going to happen in Brooklyn.
With this relic, Catholics here in the Diocese of Brooklyn have the chance not only to help Acutis along to canonization by praying for a second miracle, but to be inspired. And Emily, who knows, we might have another young saint.
Yes, Jess, exactly. There's no telling how this will affect people's faith. Now, I know you said it was going to start by traveling in schools. Can you tell us where and when?
Yeah, so I spoke with Monsignor David Casado today, who's the vicar for Catholic schools, and he said that the first school to get the relic will be St. Athanasius Catholic Academy, which is his home parish in Bensonhurst, and that he said it'll take probably about a year for the relic to make its way all the rounds throughout the schools and religious programs throughout the diocese, staying a few days at a time, and that it will then go to its final home at Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Bayside.
All right, thank you so much for that report, Jessica. Be sure to stick with Currents News and the tablet as we have continuing coverage of this special relics journey around the Diocese of Brooklyn. Pope Francis is finally back at the Vatican, where he will continue his recovery. The Holy Father was in the hospital for 10 days following surgery to get part of his colon removed. The pontiff was up and about for most of his stay, even returning to his papal duties just a few days after his operation. By the time the Pope made his journey home, he was just as active as ever. Pope Francis was cleared by his doctors to leave Gemelli Hospital at 10:30 Wednesday morning. These are the last images of the Pope before he left Francis visiting children in the pediatric oncology unit. According to the Vatican, the Pope made one stop before returning home to Casa Santa Marta. He went to the Basilica of St. Mary Major to pray before an icon of Rome's patron saint. The Holy See press office reported that Pope Francis gave thanks for the success of his operation and prayed for the sick people he saw while in the hospital. This video posted on Twitter shows that the Pope stopped before entering the Vatican to greet the police officers standing out front. Pope Francis's next official event is the Sunday Angelus. The Holy Father also plans to travel to Budapest, Hungary, and Slovakia in September. President Biden had little to say on Capitol Hill after meeting with Senate Democrats on his $3.5 trillion budget proposal.
I have no comments, just saying great to be home, great to be back with all my colleagues, and I think we're going to get a lot done.
The president spent his lunch hour fleshing out details for the expansive plan. If approved, the resolution would provide funding for a variety of key Democratic priorities like public education and climate change. Highlights in the budget include expanding Medicare benefits that allow for hearing, dental, and vision coverage, an expansion of the child tax credit, money for paid medical and family leave, tax code changes, and possible immigration reform. A final vote on the resolution could take months. The president and vice president also met with a bipartisan group of governors and mayors to discuss the $600 billion infrastructure deal that's being hammered out alongside the budget bill. The House Appropriations Committee is also working on a bill this week that does not include protections for the unborn. U.S. bishops are calling it the most extreme pro-abortion bill they have ever seen and are pressing lawmakers to restore pro-life policies like the Hyde Amendment, which had been included in prior spending bills for decades. In a statement, they said, by eliminating the Hyde Amendment and other Hyde-like policies, the financial fruits of Americans' labor would advance the destruction of the smallest, most vulnerable humans. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio also outspoken on the issue.
Senator Hyde had this put in, and it withstood the ravages of time and different administrations, that no taxpayer money would go to fund abortions. We can't stop abortions completely, but it's unfair to say that we're going to take taxpayer money where people don't agree with it to use it to destroy life.
Because the Hyde Amendment is not a permanent law, it must be re-upped every year with various spending bills. Without it, abortions across the country could significantly increase, and you would be footing the bill. A little later, Archbishop Joseph Naumann, head of the USCCB's Pro-Life Committee, weighs in on the significance of the Hyde Amendment and what can be done going forward. That's still ahead on Currents News. Also going on inside the Beltway, New York Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is promising to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level. The proposal would remove pot from the Controlled Substances Act. The draft is meant to spark discussion among members of Congress and the public. But not everyone thinks it's a good idea. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has spoken out extensively about the legalization of cannabis.
Marijuana, unfortunately, is like smoking. Any smoking is bad for your health, and so is marijuana bad for your health. It could cause cancer. There's a clear cause and effect there. So people who smoke, they're endangering their life. People who smoke marijuana will be doing the same thing, endangering their life by the possibility of cancer, if that's what science says.
Senator Schumer argues that marijuana possession has been over-criminalized and disproportionately affects minority communities, something Bishop DiMarzio says is a legitimate issue that should be dealt with separately. The legislation faces an uphill battle in the Senate, where it's unlikely to pass. And now the crisis in Cuba heating up as more than 100 people are reported missing or arrested. A new government push to silence Cuban protesters. Bishops in Cuba are raising their voices in support. We talked to a priest who was arrested and beaten for the cause.
Of course, in the end, while trying to save someone else from violence, I was hit with a bat.
Cuban-American bishops also standing in solidarity with protesters, their message to the Cuban people. Currents News continuing coverage of Cuba's fight for freedom begins now. And that fight for freedom is in jeopardy. Loved ones are crowding police stations trying to find those protesters who have gone missing or arrested. Cuba's Ministry of the Interior reporting one person died during the clashes. Patrick Ottman is in Havana with the latest.
Following wide-scale protests, the likes of which have never been seen before in Cuba, police on the island are cracking down. According to one activist group, more than 100 people have been arrested or are missing. Cuba's president said the protesters were the violent ones, and the government security forces are not committing human rights abuses.
¿Dónde están los asesinatos cubanos? ¿Dónde está la represión cubana?
Where are the murdered Cubans? Where is the repression? Where are disappeared people in Cuba? But outside this police station in Havana, a group of mostly women searched for relatives who are now missing. 3 officers jumped on him. They threw him against the floor, Jacqueline says. They broke his jaw, hurt his wrist, and I don't know where he is. Despite the communist-run government's attempt at blocking internet and mobile service as a way to stop protesters from communicating, videos of protests and crackdowns continued. Many who protested said they were exhausted by Cuba's chronic shortages. The government blames the lack of food and medicine on the U.S. trade sanctions, but Cuban exiles say it's Cuba's own crushing restrictions on private industry that have destroyed the island's economy.
The embargo that needs to end is the embargo that the Cuban government has on its people. They have the goods and they don't give it to them. It's a very difficult situation.
Patrick Ottman, Havana.
Theologians and human rights experts now fear there will be a set of swift, violent, state-sponsored reactions from the protest. A communication sent to the activists seems to list a 9-point plan by the Cuban government to shut down any displays of unrest. The message calling on leaders to use whatever means necessary to do so. While the activists do not detail all the points of the plan, one tactic is to have plainclothes police officers placed among protesters to make arrests. Bishops in Cuba may not have joined activists in the streets, but they are vocally supporting the people's right to protest, saying in a statement that people have a right to express their needs, desires, and hopes, and to publicly express how some government measures are affecting them in a serious way. The bishops are also calling for concrete measures like dialogue and agreements. One Cuban priest went viral for his part in the protests. In the video, Father Castor Alvarez is seen with a statue of Our Lady as a large crowd prays before the image during the demonstrations. Father Alvarez was beaten and arrested for that act, accused of public disorder. The priest was held at Monte Carlo police station, then released the following day. We spoke to him after he got out about his part in the protests.
I tried to avoid any violent confrontations. Of course, in the end, while trying to save someone else from violence, I was hit with a bat. But I'm okay, thank God.
Father Alvarez did not say if he has been formally charged by police. Here in the States, Cuban American bishops are supporting their people overseas. The statement written by 4 bishops, including Brooklyn Bishop Emeritus Octavio Cisneros, says, "We, Cuban American bishops, join in solidarity with the Cuban people in their quest for responses to their human rights and needs. We are deeply troubled by the aggressive reaction of the government to the peaceful manifestations. Recognize that violence engenders violence." There's a lot more news headed your way, taking the fight for life to the streets. How one Brooklyn woman has been spending years offering prayers and helping expecting mothers. And COVID cases are on the rise, the details as concerns grow over the Delta variant. Plus, from rumor to reality, an iconic dress has finally found its way home after it went missing decades ago.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
As the U.S. bishops fight to end abortion, a Brooklyn woman has taken the local fight into her own hands. For years, she's been standing outside of one of Brooklyn's biggest abortion clinics, offering prayer and other options to women, and she's having an impact. It's a walk Rose has taken for years. With a cross to proclaim her faith and gloves to protect her health, day after day, she stands outside this Brooklyn abortion clinic.
Never give up on the fact that we can reach these women. But we have to do it with love.
And Rose hasn't given up.
Even if it's just prayer, somebody has to be there to pray for these women.
She started praying years ago with Monsignor Philip Riley and the Helpers of God's Precious Infants, a pro-life group in the Diocese of Brooklyn working where they're needed most. New York City is often called the abortion capital of the country. It's where 50,000 of the state's 80,000 yearly abortions happen. 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, Rose stands here fighting to change that. A calling not without its dangers. She has been threatened.
But then one time one of them says, "You're all alone. Who do you got here? You're all alone." I says, "I have Jesus, Mary, and Joseph."
It's why Rose asked us to shoot most of the footage in this piece on a cell phone and to not use her last name. But despite the dangers, she always comes back, driven by the success stories.
She came to the place 2 or 3 times, and then on the final visit she says, "I can't do it. Praise the Lord." So that gives you an encouragement that it doesn't seem like you're doing anything, but you never, never, never know.
Standing quietly on the sidewalk as women enter the center, she hands out rosaries and pamphlets with information for local pregnancy centers. One of them, the Life Center of New York in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn.
Since we're working with Rose in the last 6 months or more, we've had maybe 4 turnarounds.
Fred says when he looks at her, he sees a possible future saint. But for all Rose does, she always wants to do more.
But a lot of times I leave with a very heavy heart because I go, they're there, they're going to be there all day. That place is open till 5.
Rose shows up every weekday morning with the exception of Wednesday. New York City does have a 15-foot buffer zone in front of clinics for protesters, but Rose sort of falls in a gray zone where she's not really protesting, just handing out the pamphlets and rosaries. Hoping to reach members of Congress, Archbishop Joseph Naumann, chairman of the USCCB Pro-Life Committee, wants representatives to uphold the Hyde Amendment and keep taxpayer dollars away from abortion funding. Christine Persichetti spoke with the Archbishop about why the big push to get rid of the Hyde Amendment is happening now.
You know, there's a shift that's happened in the abortion debate, and I trace it back actually to the Affordable Care Act, where there was an effort to define abortion as health care. And that was a very, very tragic effort on their part. And once you define it as health care, they're no longer, if people are paying attention, they're not talking about choice anymore. They're talking about imposing abortion on everyone. Everyone has to cooperate. If it's true health care, but it's not health care. Healthcare doesn't destroy life. Healthcare doesn't harm the child and the woman. And so but that's, I think, where it stems from, this effort now to say, not that abortion should be tolerated, it should be permitted, but now they want to coerce everybody to be part of it.
Yeah, and now the USCCB is urging Catholics to sign a petition. Tell us about the petition and what you hope it will accomplish.
Yeah, so the viewers can go to it's notaxpayerabortion.com to sign the petition. And if they do that, then they'll also be sent action alerts on how they can reach out to their individual congressman or woman. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really important, that the people of Congress need to hear about this. All of the polling data shows that most Americans, even most that might even identify as pro-choice, don't support taxpayer-funded abortion.
Research has proven that the Hyde Amendment saves lives. I want to read some of the numbers to you. It has proven to reduce abortion anywhere from 18 to 50% on average. Over 2.4 million children are believed to be alive today because of the amendment. It also saves women's lives, as you said. After it went into effect, abortion complications for women have gone down. So what do you think those numbers will look like if the Hyde Amendment is not saved?
Well, I think the numbers will go up. And what's even more tragic, Christine, is that they'll go up in ethnic communities and where, for instance, African American children are aborted at a much higher percentage than their percentage in the population. I think the same will happen with Hispanics. And it's really unfair for the government to support abortion, but not to provide support for women to carry their child to term.
So really quickly, what's your message to people at home who are watching?
What makes it dangerous is the Speaker of the House supports this. The President, even though he had historically supported the Hyde Amendment during the campaign to gain support within his own party, he dropped that. So our defense, our only defense is to get our people in Congress, and the Senate will be very critical in this to try to stop it.
Again, that was Archbishop Joseph Naumann, chairman of the USCCB Pro-Life Committee. COVID cases surging in dozens of states. Health experts say it's due to the Delta strain and the unvaccinated. Now the push continues to get as many people vaccinated as possible. But as Daryl Forges reports, that's been an uphill battle.
Across the country, COVID-19 is on the rise once again. 46 states now seeing an uptick in cases. The Delta variant wreaking havoc nationwide. The CDC says the variant accounted for nearly 58% of new cases since July 3rd.
Whenever anyone has an increased risk or susceptibility to getting a case, their incidence for being hospitalized goes up. Then their chance of having severe disease goes up, and unfortunately, deaths can follow.
The death rate also up in the last week. Experts say more than 99% of the deaths in June were unvaccinated people.
It's disappointing and disheartening that we're literally seeing lives lost due to those who aren't getting vaxxed.
With transmission showing no signs of stopping, physicians in the hardest hit areas say the spread among young people is a big concern ahead of the school year. The CDC reports so far about 25% of 12 to 15-year-olds are fully vaccinated.
Parents would like to have a situation where their children are as protected as they can be, but that requires everybody to do their part, wear masks when appropriate, and then get vaccinated.
The White House hoping to get a boost from pop star Olivia Rodrigo, all in hopes of encouraging young people to get that crucial shot in the arm. Daryl Forges, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, this iconic piece of movie memorabilia isn't in Kansas anymore. The unique story behind Judy Garland's long-lost dress. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. For nearly 50 years, rumors swirled about Catholic University of America regarding the blue gingham dress worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz. The piece of film history was reportedly gifted to the university in 1970 by a former artist in residence, but it has been missing ever since. That is, until the university's drama department made a huge discovery while prepping for renovations.
And it was sitting next to some like empty printer cartridges and stuff like that. So I just assumed it was something I would open up, probably something I could toss as we were organizing. Once I opened it and realized what it was, it's movie history.
The university says it will properly preserve the dress. In 2015, another one of Dorothy's dresses sold for $1.5 million at a New York auction. And that is Currents News. I'm Emily Drewby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.